Welcome to the Ridgecrest podcast, and this week you're joining us for a very special Merry Christmas podcast as we get ready for the Christmas holiday. As always, my name is Matt. I'm the Executive and Discipleship Pastor at Ridgecrest, and with me is our Senior Pastor, Michael Estes.
Good to see you.
Good to see you.
Nobody can say that we're Ebenezer Scrooge.
That is right.
We like Christmas.
That's right.
Right?
Yeah.
Let's go, Christmas. Christmas time's going to be great.
Yeah, so,
It's 75 degrees outside. Well, it's not right now. Right now it's
No.
actually cold, but and on Christmas Day, it's going to be 75 degrees here in Mississippi.
Yeah, it's supposed to be warm up in East Tennessee as well. And we just can't figure it out because I think yesterday it was like 75 and today it's 45.
30 degrees outside and windy.
So wonderful time of year. Odd.
Really good for health.
Yeah, that's right. There were a lot of people coughing and hacking in the hallways today.
Absolutely.
And so then you're like, okay, is it COVID? Is it flu? Is it... Nope, it's just weather changing.
That's right. Sinuses acting up. I have a neighbor whose grass is starting to turn green a little bit because it's been so warm.
Yeah, and that's the worst because then it just kills it whenever it gets cold again.
And you get grass allergies more than once a year. I mean, it's great.
Yeah. And we love Christmas. So
Happy Christmas! Hey, Jackson pointed out that we are the only country in the world that says Merry Christmas.
yeah, it's odd.
That is a weird thing.
I love Happy Christmas. Like,
yeah, it's great.
I love the way that sounds.
We say Happy Birthday, Happy Thanksgiving.
Yeah, or we could just start saying Merry Birthday.
Oh, that would be awesome. I might do that. Merry Birthday.
Yeah. No, I think changing it to Happy Christmas is wonderful. As long as there's like a petition or something we can start.
Well, I mentioned in the sermon today, this is our only connection to the sermon today,
Yeah.
that I'm an Anglophile. I like all things British. And they say Happy Christmas. And that was the first time I ever was, exposed to that.
Mm-hmm.
And I was really confused when they kept saying Happy Christmas. I was like, it's Merry Christmas, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah, and when I always look forward to, I'll get Christmas cards from some friends of ours in Australia and some friends of ours in the UK, and I always look forward to those Happy Christmas cards because it just, I don't know.
It really does.
It feels so much better, but, but yeah, so with that being said, since we've now explained our preference of Happy Christmas, thought about this week kind of making it a just time to talk about Christmas.
Yeah.
And we're leading into the Christmas holiday this week.
That's
coming
right.
up. If you're listening to this podcast when it comes out, I guess you're just a couple of days away from
not long at all.
from Christmas. And so I guess to get us started, and as we go along, if you think of some other questions, and we'll just kind of go back and forth on some things. But first, I guess let's look at traditions, and let's look at like Christmas traditions, whether it be family traditions, maybe it's a tradition that you haven't done that you would like to start, anything like that. What are some traditions that you really value or enjoy this time of year?
So, as a child, and we've carried this over into adulthood with our children, both Julie and I, our parents would take us out to go see Christmas lights. And there was always like a neighborhood or two that really just went all out. There was a neighborhood in Jackson, South Jackson, that we used to go to, and they definitely, like every house on the street, I guess they entered into an agreement as far as like a neighborhood covenant maybe, that hey, this is what we're going to do. I'm sure the electric bills were unbelievable, but they would do this and people would just drive through the neighborhood, and it was usually long lines and that sort of thing, but it was a lot of fun. It was usually cold, and it was just kind of neat to see all the different lights. There aren't as many places like that. I've noticed that there are fewer people that decorate outside for Christmas. A lot of people decorate inside for Christmas still, but and I get that. Our lives are so busy that we kind of add just a little bit every year, and so we are definitely not Griswold Christmas people.
Yeah.
So we do that. We watch Christmas movies. There's a couple that make it into our playlist every single year. Home Alone 2, Christmas Vacation, which we got to watch the edited version of. And even that's not suggesting that that's what we need to be doing during Christmas. And then let's see, and then A Christmas Story, which Julie despises and I love.
That's what I was going to ask. Is every family I ever talk to, and it's always that dynamic where half the family absolutely loves A Christmas Story, half the family absolutely hates A Christmas Story.
I may be the only one in my family that loves it.
Okay.
So It happened because it's my dad's fault. I'm gonna blame him in the most loving way that I possibly can. He used to turn it on. It was on TBS or TNT.
He did a little 24-hour marathon.
Which, by the way, if you think about like TBS and TNT for being run by Ted Turner, who was not a Christian, I mean, like he didn't claim to be. I mean, he gave his employees off Christmas because the way they did that is they just set it to run continuously for 24 hours so that nobody had to be there to do anything.
Yeah.
And so, anyways, we'd turn it on and I'd watch bits and pieces of it throughout the day. And at first I did not like it. And then I actually sat down and watched the entire thing and I loved it. I was like, this is so great.
Yeah. See, we are opposite.
Okay.
In that regard is Whitney is the one who loves it. And she grew up watching with her dad. Her mom despises it.
Yep.
I despise it. It's one of those I just cannot, and I'm usually, I can get behind some odd humor kind of things, but for whatever reason, that one
there's some really weird parts of that movie.
Just never could.
Speaking of, the unedited version of that movie is pretty rough from what I've heard.
Yeah, I can imagine.
So.
And that was one I never could. But that's always interesting because anytime I talk to people about that movie, it's always a house divided on that movie.
Yep.
I don't know that I've ever met anybody who's married one another who both love that movie. How about you guys, Steven? A Christmas Story? You hate it? Both hate it.
Both hate it?
Both hate it.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it's TBS's fault.
Because it was on all the time?
Too much,
Yeah. That makes sense.
Yeah. So what about you guys as far as traditions?
Yeah. I don't know that we really have a lot of traditions. Growing up, I had a divorced household, so it was a little different, but I would always have Christmas Eve with my mom, and I'd have Christmas with Dad, and we kind of have that same kind of pattern now. And then whenever we get married, we add a third set of parents, in that, and so it's always been kind of a musical chair kind of Christmas, and not necessarily for everyone, but it always worked for us, and I never, had anything, as far as a kid, one thing that a lot of times, I would always look forward to is like, whether I was with mom or dad, usually I'd get to open one present early, and so that was always kind of a special thing. And so that was a lot of fun. And now being parents, we're trying to do some new tradition stuff. Of course, we still do a lot of travel to visit everyone. And, Maverick is big into Christmas. He loves it. And so he'll, basically the whole month of December, he's all about Christmas movies and, that sort of thing. So trying to do some of that. And I don't know, Whitney loves to look at Christmas lights every year when we go in, we'll usually go and do that, around home, because I have a couple of good places up there that go all out for Christmas, like Bristol Motor Speedway. A lot of people know it for NASCAR, but at Christmas time, they decorate the whole place in Christmas lights. You drive through it, and you actually part of it you're driving on the track,
Oh, that's
through
cool.
the
That's
lights
really
and stuff,
cool.
and so it's neat. And then the pit is where they have like their little Christmas village, is what they call it. And you can go visit Santa. You can do, they have like a little carnival type rides there in the pit, and all sorts of little things. And so if you're like Christmas lights is a neat thing. Smokies baseball stadium does the same thing there in Pigeon Forge area. And so we usually do something like that, ice skating, all those types of things, kind of do that every year. And so we just try to, rather than having anything set that like, okay, this is our tradition that we're going to do all the time, we, try to do whatever we can find and kind of get our hands on.
Yeah, it's something I didn't mention before, and I don't know if y'all did this or not, but I always recalled us doing some sort of Christmas Eve service. And growing up in the Presbyterian church that I grew up in, we did a full-on candlelight service, which we've done here a little bit, but I seem to recall us when we sing Silent Night. Of course, that's when we do the candle lights, and we would turn all the lights out in the place. I basically knew what to expect every year that we did it, and I remember the first year I got to hold the candle myself and actually, have it lit and that sort of thing. And it's been cool to see that here at our Christmas Eve services that we've had. I know that we've done that some, and we're planning on having, of course, a Christmas Eve service again this year. And so, if you hear the podcast and you want to come, it's going to happen at 5 p.m. And it'll be pretty simple. It's one of the things I like about the Christmas Eve service a lot of times is it's like it's very traditional in the sense that like what to expect when you go in. We're going to sing Christmas carols, and there's going to be some sort of like Christmas devotion, and we're going to light candles, and there's a lot about it that's kind of nostalgic and that sort of thing that I easily can relate to and I like. And so, anyways, I think that that'll be the tenor of ours as well. Is kind of short but very traditional, and you know what to expect, that sort of thing.
Yeah, growing up, I never participated in anything like that. Yeah, as a young child, I wasn't really in a church household. I didn't get involved in church until I was probably 8, 9 years old. You know, coming close to the end of elementary, I guess. And the church we did get involved in never did any kind of candlelight service. And when my dad moved to the Nashville area, their church did one. So one year I came and visited them. I was an adult by that point. And that was the first time I ever really was in a Christmas Eve service. And then here, you know, since I've been here, we do it basically every year. And so this has kind of been my first kind of that. And it is a neat, you know, time to do that. And even like last year when we kind of did a digital at-home version of that, you know, that was neat because we were able to do that while we were visiting family in Tennessee. And so we made it a point where we all sat down together and watched that, you know, together. And that was a neat thing as well.
Yeah.
You mentioned some of your, you know, Christmas movies. Are there any other Christmas media things that, you know, you love, and just, you know, whether, you know, maybe Christmas songs or other movies that you didn't mention that you gotta see this time of year?
Lots of songs. Our family has a problem, maybe. Definitely an issue. We listen to Christmas music a lot.
Yeah.
Jackson started it this summer.
Okay.
That was the earliest we'd ever started.
Yeah.
He was on a trip with his mom to a baseball tournament, and he was like, "I want to play Christmas music," and so she said, "Okay." So we haven't listened to it continuously since the summer, but it's been off and on since then. And so we have a tendency to listen to a lot of Christmas music. I have found this year, like Nat King Cole and Bing Crosby, that group, they made the best Christmas music. Like all the best versions of all Christmas songs were done before 1990. After that, it's just really, really bad versions of Christmas songs.
Yeah.
I don't want to defame anyone's name, but I was listening to a song last night on the radio, and the person who sang it probably sang it late 90s, early 2000s, and I was like, how did this person ever get a record contract? Like, they can't sing.
Yeah.
And I was just like, why is this a Christmas song? And so, anyways, you got folks like Nat King Cole rolling around out there who's got this beautiful voice, and like he makes all this really great Christmas music, and it's just like, that's all we need. We don't need updated versions of this.
Right.
So, as far as Christmas hymns, I think my favorite Christmas carol or Christmas hymn is O Come, Emmanuel. There's something really mysterious about it that I love. Just all of it, just for the rhythm of the music and the actual words. I think that Christmas carols and hymns have the best theology. You look at the lyrics and it's just like, all of this is good, except for the fact that Jesus doesn't cry as a baby. I don't know that was the case. We don't have any reason to believe that, but beyond that.
I was thinking about that. I can't remember, it was last week during the sermon or during the Christmas program at one point. Like I was for whatever reason, something caught me and I started thinking through that. And, you know, that's always a debate. Well, if Jesus was perfect, that means he never cried, you know. But as I was thinking through that, you know, babies don't cry because they're sinning in that.
No.
They're crying because that's how they communicate.
Yeah.
You know, and so
they can't talk to you.
Right. And so either Jesus just never cried, and it was through the Spirit who always told Mary and Joseph exactly what that child needed, exactly when, or he was fully human and he cried to communicate. Not, you know, I know sometimes as a parent when you have a screaming infant in your arms,
you're like this little sinner.
You're like this
sinner.
child is a sinner, and you know he needs to stop.
I totally
crying,
believe in total depravity right now.
That's right. But you know, more times than not, it's our sinfulness that's preventing us from understanding, you know, and figuring it out. But yeah, so that's good. As
but
you know, I'm not a big music guy.
Yeah.
But you know, I'm not a big fan of Christmas music for the most part. However,
we do like Christmas.
Yeah, we do like Christmas. One of my favorite albums, you know, that I'll usually listen to this time of year is by a band called Relient K.
Yeah,
and
I remember you telling me this before.
Not a lot of people aren't going to know them because it was, they were, of course, they're still around, from my understanding. But they released a Christmas album back in, I don't know, early 2000s.
Yeah.
I was in high school at the time. But there's some really good songs in there. And of course, they do some of your traditional, Christmas songs and just, do them a little bit differently and really good. But there's one particular song on there. It's called "I Celebrate the Day," and it's really good because the whole thing is kind of going through the birth of Christ and talking about, the kind of the last line of that song is "I celebrate the day you were born to die," and it kind of goes through. And it's just a really beautiful song on the piano, and but that's one that's always stood out to me. So if anyone wants to listen to it, Reliant K, "I Celebrate the Day," really good, kind of different Christmas song than just your normal, hymns and other very popular, Christmas songs that you hear this time of year.
Yeah. I don't know if I've gotten softer in my old age or what, but for years, I did not like Mary Did You Know.
Yeah.
Because I was like, yes, she knew. That's what the whole point of Luke 1 and 2 is. She knew what was happening. But I saw a thread on Twitter this year that made me reconsider my position on this particular song, because it was like, there are rhetorical questions all throughout Scripture, like, who is like you, God? And the answer is nobody. I mean, but it's just a part of the rhetorical nature of the Scripture. Yeah. And so there was a part of me that was like, okay, I guess the song is asking a bunch of rhetorical questions. It is supposed to lead us to say, yes, Mary knew all this.
Yeah.
But I haven't. I'm at least reconsidering my position on this song.
Yeah, and I can see that because I've went back and forth on it as well. Because some of the portion of the song is like, did you know that he would walk on water? Did you know, all these types of things? And we know that the angel visited Mary and said, you're going to have this child. And but you have to think, even his disciples, we see Jesus interacting with his disciples. His disciples didn't even know some of these things. And so I always kind of walk through that and like, well, how much did Mary know? She knew that her son was the Son of God, but beyond that, did she really know? Was she prepared as she was holding him as an infant to know that she's going to be at the foot of his cross, those types of things. So like you, I can kind of see the other side of it, but I also had that frustration, like, yes, she knew. An angel came and told her.
Okay, so it's going to blow your mind when I tell you this. You know who has sung the best version of this song that I've heard?
Okay.
CeeLo Green.
I've heard that version.
It is so good.
It is really good. Yeah.
One, the dude can sing.
Yeah, he can.
And you don't get all the weird quirkiness of his voice in it, but it comes through at the right times, and it's so good.
Yeah.
I love that version of that song.
Yeah, you're right. That is good. Shifting gears as far as Christmas traditions and things go, is there anything that you can look back on as far as traditions or specific Christmases that maybe aren't as enjoyable?
Oh yeah, I've got. There was one in particular that was rough. I think it was Christmas time. It was definitely cold, and we had an ice storm hit, and we lost power. And my sister and I were fairly young. My sister was rehabbing an ACL tear. I was trying to help her do that. It was really cold, and our house was frigid. And my dad was to the point that he was like, we're going somewhere and staying in a hotel or whatever. And my sister and I were like, we can't. Like, it's Christmas. We can't leave. I'm pretty sure it was a Christmas. And that was just not a fun. It was a rough year for our family. Just we had some people that were dear to us that passed away, and I just remember that was just not a good Christmas at all. But I remember the thing I remember most about that is sitting by the fireplace, because we had a wood burning fire at the time, and my sister had this old exercise bike, and I had become her kind of a rehab partner, and basically my job was, her foot was on the pedal and she couldn't push or anything like that. We were just trying to build extension and flexion in her knee. And so I would just take the other pedal and just turn it.
Yeah.
And do it as slow as I could so that she could begin to break up some of that scar tissue and stuff.
Yeah.
And that was the best part of it was me trying to help her work through pain.
Yeah.
So, anyways, what about you?
Yeah. Well, I don't have anything that extreme. I just remember, of course, I think I've shared it on the podcast before. I have a younger brother and sister who they are 11 years younger than me. And so when they were getting into that prime time Christmas spirit window, I was a late teenager,
right?
You know, and so I was not in a very much Christmas spirit mood. And of course, so Christmas morning, of course, they wake up as they're, you know, 5, 6, 7 years old, you know, and they come busting into my room as a
Should we warn
15.
Parents before we get to this part if there's a little one in the car with them?
No.
Okay.
No,
okay.
No,
I just don't want us to reveal anything that, you know.
No, we won't reveal anything like that. You know, but you know, as a them as a 5, 6, 7-year-old kid, that means I was 15, 16, 17, 18 years old, teenager. They come bust into my room at like 6 o'clock in the morning because it's the most exciting thing. Presents are here. We've got to go. You know, see what Santa brought. See what that was their thing. Is like we got to open up all of our presents. And you know, I remember as a teenager, I did not want to wake up at 6 o'clock in the morning. I didn't care about presents that much, and I was like, mine will still be there. Y'all go have a great time. You know, and you know now as a parent, you know, get to experience that same thing. And so I always remember I hated Christmas morning because I knew they were going to come busting in my room, waking me up, you know, at sunrise to go open presents because they're excited, which I get. I was there at one point, you know, and same thing this weekend. We actually went ahead and did our, you know, mine and Whitney's Christmas with Maverick, since we're going to be traveling, and one of his gifts would prove very beneficial for our long trip. So we were like, you know, it's not going to hurt to go ahead and do it here because we went back and forth. Do we do that now and do that, or do we just take all of our presents with us and then him open them up there with everybody else? We're like, no, let's just do it here. So we were kind of talking through that, and you know, Maverick, of course, was all on board and was asking us to do that. He's like, yeah, I think we should just go ahead and open up presents like now because we're not going to be here. So we were like, well, okay, we'll talk about it. So we did, and Whitney, without really thinking about it, she said, yep, we'll go ahead and open them up Saturday morning. Originally, we talked about doing it maybe Sunday afternoon. And she's like, we'll go ahead and do it Saturday morning. And I looked at her and I was like, you know, of course, we were in the car. We were in the front seat. He was in the back. And I was like, you realize what you just did? And she kind of looks at me. And I'm like, that means it's going to be the crack of dawn Saturday morning. And then before I could whisper it, you know, he says, you know, brings up that point. He's like, yeah, and you know, or no, Whitney tries to curb it.
She's trying to backpedal.
As I do that, she said, well, we'll probably do it Saturday afternoon. And then Maverick, of course, just looked appalled. He was like, no, you do it first thing in the morning. That's what you do on Christmas. I was like, yeah, but it's not really Christmas. And then we went to dinner, and I was able to talk to Whitney. I was like, hey, let's just do it tonight when we go. This is Friday night. You know, let's just do it tonight when we get home. So that way he'll be excited about it, and we don't have to do that Saturday morning. However, that still worked great. But then Saturday morning at the crack of dawn when he wakes up and he's wanting to use some of this stuff, I've, of course, got to get up with him and help him. And of course, it's not as bad now as an adult because I'm waking up at 6:30 anyway, talking about things changing as we get older. You know, but
it's real.
But yeah, so that was kind of my thing is I hated Christmas morning because I wanted to sleep and everybody my younger siblings wanted to bust the doors open and rip open their presents.
You got any especially memorable Christmas presents? I've got one I just popped in my head a little while ago, and part of it's because I love music. Yeah. I got a Walkman one Christmas. Yeah. And I got a Bryan Adams tape with it. Oh. And man, I jammed to some Bryan Adams, Summer of '69. Like it was it was something else. Like I knew every one of those songs backwards and forwards. I wore that tape out, and then I got a bunch more tape. How about that?
Yeah, you unlocked a memory for me because I remember getting like a boombox.
Yeah,
and that was like the coolest thing because it was like, you know, 3 feet wide, foot tall, you know, and you could put all these tapes in, and you know that one even had a CD player. You know, for CDs were starting to come out.
Did it have the two tape deck? Like, so you could like take somebody else's tape and then record it onto a blank. Yeah,
absolutely. It did.
Steve, you know anything about this?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely. I didn't have tapes. I had CDs, but I'm tracking.
Yeah, and you know, I'm in that, I'm right at the age where like I remember, I vaguely remember 8 tracks.
I don't remember 8 tracks. Well, I mean, I remember them, but I didn't ever have an 8 track.
Yeah, see, I never had 8 tracks, but I remember them, and I remember my great grandmother's car had 8 track player in it, and so remember that, and then Whitney had this huge old stereo cabinet that was her grandmother's, and it had a record player, 8 track, and cassette player.
Yeah.
So that's pretty cool. But yeah, so I remember I had cassettes, and then I was able to transition to CDs, and then I also have transitioned to, streaming, and the digital versions of that. And so I'm at that, of course, I guess you are as well. We're at that age where we got to see that progression of all those. And
our kids will never know.
No, it's
I wish they had to deal with the tape.
Yeah.
I mean, like, we just hit next. Like, if I was going to skip a song, it was like I've got to know how long I've got to fast forward and hit play.
Yeah.
And then it's just guessing game. Total guessing game.
Yeah. But it's always great because you get to the end and then you flip it over for part 2.
Yeah. That's what I'm talking about.
But yeah, that's amazing. All right. Transitioning to the Christmas story and the nativity scene in which we so often decorate our houses with. While they're not necessarily biblically accurate, there are all sorts of individuals there represented at that nativity scene.
Yeah.
Who would you say that you can most identify with or kind of relate to in that, of all the individuals represented at the nativity scene, who would you say that you could most relate to?
That's a great question. I'm debating between a group of people and a person. I think where I am now, I would say like Joseph. Partially because like when you're a dad and one of your children is born, you're literally helpless there. Like you're just there. There's not much you can do. And in that situation, the only thing that you really can do is just be present and faithful to take care of whatever you can take care of. And like that literally is what Joseph was. He was a faithful, good man, like who listened to God and who. I'm not saying I'm those things, but like that's who I would want to most be like in that story. Is obviously can't relate to Mary very well. Like, can't give birth to a person. Yeah. The shepherds are hard for me to relate to in the sense that like that's probably who I would go to next, but like I haven't experienced much of their life.
Yeah.
And the wise men, I'm not extravagantly wealthy, and I don't bring any kind of special offering to God in that way. And so, anyways, I think Joseph probably. Yeah. What about you?
Yeah. I like what you're saying, about Joseph. Like I didn't necessarily think through it in that way, but I think all that is really good. I was probably leaning towards shepherds.
Yeah.
Simply because I like excitement.
Yeah.
And I kind of think of the shepherds out doing the same old thing that they're always doing, the kind of normal work, caring for their flock, caring for this and that, and then all of a sudden you get this exciting news. I can relate to that and be like, yeah, I want to go see it. I'm gonna drop everything so I can go, go see this event that's taking place, even if I don't fully understand it.
Right.
I'm not gonna need a whole lot of details, even though they got a visit from an angel with a miraculous announcement kind of thing, and but I can kind of relate to them as far as being I'm not really from an affluent background, and so I understand kind of the humble means and be like, oh wow, there's something exciting going on. Of course, I want to go check it out, and so that's kind of where I lean there. But I also what you said is from the fatherly perspective, that's really good as well. And then for this Christmas, you're going to New York.
Yeah, I'm gonna see the big city.
Yeah,
and hopefully get to see some things while we're there.
Yeah,
and not get stuck in our hotel room.
Yeah.
We're looking forward to that. That was Julie we had said that we want to travel somewhere for Christmas this year, which is something we've never done before. We've never been away from home, wherever home was. We've never been away from that place during the actual day of Christmas, but with the kids being where they are and those sorts of things. We've seen Julie and I both have been to New York. We haven't seen it at Christmas time. Of course, it's supposed to be just really, really cool as far as the displays and the lights and those were at Rockefeller Center and so we're looking forward to that. That should be a good experience. And we'll be back the day after, and we'll get a week for the kids at least, a week of recuperation and preparation for going back into school. But looking forward to it. It should be a lot of fun. You're going to Tennessee.
Yep, we are. And one thing I would say here in the near future, we'll probably do something like that as well, because that's one thing I've always wanted to do. Because I remember growing up, always seeing like friends and stuff like, hey, we're going to spend Christmas at Disney World, or we're going to go spend Christmas in New York, or whatever. Like as a kid growing up, and even as an adult, I was like, man, I want to be that person, like to be able to go do that. And so I would imagine here in the next year or two we'll do that. But typically, especially since we lived here in Mississippi, we'd go back home for Christmas, and that's always nice because we're in the mountains, and it kind of feels like its own little getaway anyway.
Absolutely.
And so that's nice. And of course, Maverick, loves to see the family and all those types of things. And typically it's cooler and more winter, but it's going to be warm there like it is here. But it is what it is, and we'll probably do something. But it'll have a good time.
Absolutely.
As you've listened, again, we kind of made this kind of a lightweight kind of, end of the year podcast to talk about, Christmas. Want to give you some other kind of a little teaser for what's coming next. Starting in January of 2022, our podcasts are going to look a little bit different. Up until now, we've kind of debriefed the previous sermon. Starting in January, we're going to be looking at a few different things, and we're going to kind of take the podcast in a few different directions, and we'll have more about that in our January podcast, and we'll kind of dive into that and explain what the podcast is going to look like moving forward. But we appreciate you listening. As always, we hope you have a very Merry Christmas and
happy Christmas.
New Year. Yeah, very happy Christmas and a very happy New Year over the next couple of weeks. From the Ridgecrest family to yours, and we really hope that throughout this season, of course, we don't get so busy and all the things going on that we don't take time to really reflect and remember, what it is that we're using this time of year to celebrate, and that is the birth of Christ, and give us this peace with God that could only be received through that. And so we want to encourage you in that. We hope you have again, very happy Christmas, happy New Year, and we appreciate you listening, and we look forward to where we're going in 2022. Otherwise, have a great week. See you next time.